So what are the mistakes that we make with uniqueness? The first mistake is not specific enough. This is very important. Most people make this mistake consistently. The second one, which is stuffing the uniqueness, we'll find out what this turkey is all about. And finally, we've already covered this, but it's so important that we need to cover it again, which is not getting the word out. Most people get the uniqueness, but don't get the word out. So let's start with the first mistake. What is not specific enough? What we tend to do is we start to look at something like Domino's Pizza, and it's clear. 30 minutes, 31 minutes, and it's free. 32 minutes, it's free. 29 minutes, not free. You have to pay for it. Timberland, not 98%, not 94%, but 100% waterproof. The article writing course, not as clear as it should be, but it's getting there. So it's really tough. How tough is it? And it's been defined, if not highlighted to the extent it should be, but it's been defined, it's baby tough. That means it's like having a newborn in the house, no sleep for 3 months. That's how tough it is. So graphically, textually, it's been supported. And that's what you really have to do. Now, the Brain Audit has lots of testimonials, 800 plus testimonials, but that specific hasn't gone through. And when that specific doesn't go through, then you haven't got the point across. Whereas when you look at Volvo, you'll see how much they've created. They've created crash test dummies, crumple zone, laminated glass, seat belt, a whole bunch of things for years and years and years. And we also realized that Volvo could say, well, we have the best mileage and we have cars that last 19.8 years and we have this and we have that. But what did they choose? They chose safety. Now, when you look at Volvo, they built their whole business around safety. And that's really what you want to start looking at. Everything that they have out there, 1964, 66, 74, 86, they keep going and going around safety and safety and safety and safety. And that's why you say Volvo and safety. But they're specific and they're driving home that fact over and again. Even though technically you may say, well, Volvo doesn't say we're 70% safe. But they're driving home these facts over and over and over again. And you don't have that budget. You don't have Volvo's budget to do crazy advertising. So you want to drive home specifics as quickly as possible. And this brings us to, that little IronKey thing that we saw before. Well, why is it $79? Because it has high-speed AES CBC mode encryption. Maybe very important for someone. In fact, it's very important for companies because a company person will just put in a little IronKey or any flash drive and then it gets lost in the cab or somewhere, and now the competition can get it. So it's very important for them. $79, not a problem. $19, it's a problem. And that's the uniqueness. They had a waiting list for their flash drives at one point. So that's how you can have a 50%, 100%, 200%, 400%, 500% markup, and still the client says, why? I choose you because of this reason. And that's why they chose IronKey. You always want to drive home the fact. How safe is safe? How tough is tough? How fast is fast? What are the specifics that you're driving home? Because it's only when you drive home the specifics that you answer the question why. So that's our first mistake. We're not specific enough. We're trying to be all things to all people. The second thing is just stuffing it like a turkey. So what does stuffing it like a turkey mean? Well, look at this line. How to create no-dose, powerful and persuasive presentations. Looks perfectly good to you, right? This is how most of you and I are going to write lines. We're going to write this and we're going to say, this is our uniqueness. And you start to look at it and you start to see there's no dose, persuasive, and powerful. Wait a second. Those are three things and we have to pick one. So Each one is going to ask a question. How no-dose is no-dose? How persuasive is persuasive? How powerful is powerful? But we're stuffing it so much so that we cannot get the point across. And really what we need to do is get rid of two of those and pick one. But how can you tell that you're overstuffed? Well, look for punctuation. What is punctuation? Commas, full stops, slash marks, anything like that. So see that comma there? See the and, the conjunction there? Well, what we have is punctuation and conjunction and all sorts of grammar. The point is, the moment you start to see all that coming in, you know that, hang on a second, what we have now are 3 elements and not 1 element, or 4 elements and not 1 element. So put them in a line. How to create no-dose, 1 line, powerful, next line, persuasive, next line, and then pick one. And that's how you start to get it. So that is our second mistake, that we overstuff our uniqueness in what seems like a perfectly legible, readable line, you know, with 3, 4, 5 words, but really you want 1. The third mistake we've already covered many times, but it's not getting the word out. We saw that with the brain audit. It didn't matter that we had this book. It didn't matter that it sold, you know, thousands or tens of thousands of copies. In fact, it sold $500,000 worth of product just from the website with no affiliates, no joint ventures, nothing. And yet it's not reached its potential simply because it doesn't drive the uniqueness home. So recognize that not getting the word out is probably the biggest crime of them all. So the mistakes that we covered, not specific enough. You want to drive home the specifics, getting too much stuff into your uniqueness, and definitely not getting the word out. So let's summarize this entire presentation. We started out with the 3 ways in which we could go about creating our list, which is features, feedback, playing Emperor. Then we looked at how playing Emperor was very powerful because it freed us to create something like an iPhone, or to create something like a Kindle, or to create a book, or to create something where we played Emperor and we decided. And we saw that this was not just some crazy thing to do, but successful brands do it. And sometimes, like Subway, it is stuffed upon you and you have to decide what you want to do with it. We moved on to the second part from there. We started to look at how we picked one. So we had 5 or 6 points. We went down to 3 and then we picked one. We looked at uniqueness case studies. We looked at the article writing course. We looked at the brain audit, and we saw that it didn't matter how great your uniqueness was, as long as you didn't get the word out. If you got the word out, it was fine. If you didn't get the word out, you were in trouble. And then we looked at the 3 mistakes, which is not specific enough, stuffing your uniqueness. What seems perfectly plausible is actually very stuffed. So pick one. And finally, and again, not getting the word out. That's the most important of all. So this brings us to pretty much the end of the presentation, which takes us to the next step. What are you going to do next? So what's the next step? Well, the 3 things to do. First is create your list. Don't go after uniqueness, just create your list. The second is pick 3, then pick 1. And finally, make sure that you get the word out starting today. Small bits, doesn't have to be very fancy, just get the word out today. Start thinking about it and start implementing it. Now, this has been brought to you by Psychotactics.com, and we have lots of stuff at Psychotactics.com. Article writing course, there's 5000 BC, which you don't want to go unless you surely want to be in a membership that's totally different. There's also the brain audit. You probably read the brain audit. It's a book that's quite unique, but if you've read it, you already know that. There's black belt presentations, there's summer workshops, there's so much to do. So what are you going to do right away? Well, if you liked this presentation, you're probably trying to figure out, how do I make a presentation like that? And it's all outlined in black belt presentation. So among these 5 things, we're going to pick one, and that is black belt presentations, the series. So what's unique about black belt presentations? Well, it shows you about control. It shows you how to control an audience, control a presentation without turning the audience off. Other books, they show you how to control, but it feels kind of yucky. This series shows you how to control without turning off the audience. So it keeps the audience loving you from start to finish. There's lots of stuff, as you can see here. There's a ton of information that you absolutely love. Graphics, pictures, everything that you can possibly want. And that's your URL, psychotactics.com, products/black/belt.presentation. So let's say that again. You can see it's psychotactics.com/products, black belt presentations with hyphens in between. So go there, and of course, this has been brought to you by psychotactics.com. We'll see you soon. Bye for now.